Hey Geeks and Gamers, it's Jesse Milestone showing off my brand new Geeks and Gamers swag. That's right, it's like I'm a real person, because only real people are Geeks and Gamers people, and that's a fact of life, so chew on that. I have a very interesting subject matter today. It's very dark and heavy, alright? So before we get into that, I want to, in a moment of levity, introduce you guys to some important members of my family. So he's not nearly as complacent as Leia is, but this is Han Solo, live and in the flesh, not just in an awkward still picture. He's my baby cat. Why is he named Han Solo? Because when I got a cat for the first time in my life, I had no idea. I was like, oh my god, this creature's gonna live for a really long time. Who do I want my constant companion to be for the next like 15 to 20 years? Han Solo. Han Solo is who I would like that person to be. So that's why he's named what he is. And here's his little brother, Lando Calrissian. Yes, Calrissian, because the only acceptable puns are Star Wars puns. Got Lando a year later. And alright, so who was Han's companion going to be for the next X amount of time? Well, there are only a couple of options for that. Lando's a boy, so Leia was out. He's definitely not a Chewbacca. So there's really only one choice left. Lando. There you go. So those are my cats. I hope you like them. Now we can get into this really, really serious topic. And this is a topic, I'm surprised that I haven't heard of people discussing this before. But that topic is, which is the better movie? Or I guess really, which is the worst movie? The Star Wars Holiday Special or The Last Jedi? Now, I would find it hard to believe that most of you aren't familiar with the Star Wars Holiday Special, but in case you aren't familiar, quick recap. The Star Wars Holiday Special came out the year after A New Hope came out, and it was bad. It was really bad. It was a made-for-TV movie that was so bad that it was only broadcast the one time, and then it was never broadcast ever again. It was never even released on video. Lots of strange things happen in this film. But the central plot is Life Day is a thing, and Chewbacca's family, which consists of son Lumpy, father Itchy, and wife Mala, are hoping that he comes home for Life Day. But, you know, it's turmoil in the galaxy, and everyone's looking for Chewie because he's part of the rebellion and it's bad. So, but eventually he does make it home. Yay, hooray. Now, this movie is characterized not by its plot, but by all of its little oddities. For example, Lumpy just getting mesmerized by this holographic circus. Mala trying to cook using an absurd cooking show. Itchy doing some sort of virtual reality pornography, basically. A tiny holographic Jefferson Airplane music video, and a random animation of Luke and Han and people in the first introduction of Boba Fett. So this is one of the things, one of the only things that's sort of held as good about the holiday special is that the little animation was actually kind of alright and introduced the character of Boba Fett, who obviously is very, very important to the franchise. So let's hold these two next to each other, and God, it's really tough to talk about. I mean, let me put it this way. The first time I watched this holiday special, my friend and I had one copy, and it malfunctioned, and we stopped just after this holographic circus scene, and when we found another version of it, I was reluctant to start it again. I was like, I don't know if I can do this thing. I don't know if I can we skip through the circus thing, because I can't do that again. So the struggle was real. The best part about it was probably the version we watched had the original commercials that aired, 1978 on it, and one of them was breaking news about how it's been 9 months since this crazy snowstorm, and the hospitals have not seen the influx of women giving birth that they thought they would. That was news. So that was the most interesting part. Leia sings a random song. It's a strange experience. If you haven't experienced it, you probably should or shouldn't spare yourself. Maybe you'll find it comforting in these dark times for Star Wars fans. So I want to use some points of comparison, some different categories to go over to really, really decide which one wins in my mind. Now, I will preface by saying, just pointedly, just right off the bat, even though it was very difficult to find the willpower to start up again after 15 minutes in, we had to. Today, I would sit down, irrespective of which one you want to say is better, today I would sit down and gladly watch the holiday special before watching The Last Jedi again. With that in mind, we continue with our first category, all right? Film quality. this is a no-brainer. Overall film quality of The Last Jedi is so much better. Some of it is budget, some of it is the technology, some of it is less cocaine, probably. It just knocks it out of the park. Better visuals, better quality, you know, of everything, etc. And then, so that brings us to the next category, acting. Last Jedi is also going to take the cake on this one. You know, as much as I have issues with, there are a lot of things, as you know, I have so many issues with this movie. Acting is not a thing I have issues with. I think Daisy Ridley is a fine actor. John Boyega is great. I think that the movie, Adam Driver is excellent. The movie doesn't suffer from bad acting. It suffers from bad writing, bad character development, etc. Acting is not a thing it suffers from. The same cannot necessarily be said of the holiday special. It's a campy movie, so there's not the acting. There are no like big acting challenges. But I will say Harrison Ford says pretty much every single line, like totally making a mockery of the thing because he knows how utterly absurd it all is, and actually has denied the existence of this film. So Jedi takes it for acting as well. Film quality and acting takes the cake. Now, let's move on to plot. The plot of the holiday special actually makes a lot more sense and has fewer holes than The Last Jedi. It really does. It's, you know, there's all this weird technology that happens in there and okay, like the plot definitely drags and suffers from the fact that we're constantly interrupted for these bizarre videos that don't really seem to have anything to do with the plot, and they don't. They're just sort of world-building vignettes. This is more a variety show than it is, you know, movie. But there's nothing about the plot that just makes absolutely no sense, except maybe that scene where all the Wookiees are, like, dressed in these weird, creepy red robes, holding these orbs, walking through space into a star. That part maybe didn't make a lot of sense. But other than that, you know, like, that's probably the biggest thing that doesn't make sense. So that's one thing. It doesn't make a lot of sense in this movie. That's probably the least sensical thing. I feel like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that Han and Chewie are gonna put this much effort risking their lives, and therefore also, you know, their families' lives, taking Chewie home for Life Day. I'm gonna say that's a nonsense. That's nonsensical. So two things that really, in terms of plot holes, big things that don't make sense. Let's talk about the issues in The Last Jedi. What doesn't make sense in The Last Jedi? Pretty much all of it. Why did they go to Cantabite? Leia Mary Poppinsing. Holdo not telling anyone about the plan. Rose saving Finn's life. That right there is already more. We can just say Holiday Special wins. Holiday Special takes the cake. And so we'll move on to Originality. I mean, this is a no-brainer for Holiday Special as well. It's completely original. It's utterly ridiculous and absurd, but it's very original. It's certainly not copying anything I've seen. Whereas The Last Jedi, as I've mentioned, has lifted straight dialogue from the other movies. If you want to look at my review of The Last Jedi, I will show you exactly, I will point out to you exactly everything it steals from other movies. And this is an issue I have deeply with the film, is its utter lack of originality. It's lifting dialogue straight from the original trilogy. I cannot abide that. So I'm giving this one hands down to the Holiday Special, as hard as it is to say out loud. Oh, God. All right, then we're going to talk about logic within the Star Wars universe. How does this story fit into the Star Wars universe? Does it make sense? Again, the Holiday Special one, the most illogical piece of it is why are you trying this hard to come home for Life Day, you know? And then they leave Chewie there at the end, so it's like, all right, so then Chewie has to go back out and find them, and how is he going to do that? Because they're gallivanting around the galaxy. So that's sort of, again, that doesn't really fit. Like, I don't believe the story would have happened necessarily. But at the same time, nothing in the story actually fundamentally breaks down my knowledge or acceptance of what Star Wars is. The Last Jedi! The Last Jedi does that. Absolutely fundamentally messes up the concept of what a Jedi is, what balance in the Force means, what a chain of command means, what happens when you blow up a bad guy's number one major weapon that seemed to also have most of their resources on it. Like, it just, it doesn't, for all intents and purposes, the Holiday Special feels more like a Star Wars movie than The Last Jedi does. I mean, not in the sense that, like, oh, it's super Star Warsy and epic and great. I mean, it has the original characters playing themselves at the age that they were for that, so there's that piece alone. But it even with its sort of campy, silly tone, I believe that this is what a Holiday Special in the Star Wars universe looks like. You know, I buy into it in a way that... And I'm almost happy because it doesn't take itself seriously. It's not trying to be like, this is Star Wars. It's not trying to follow along the epic plot of a Star Wars story. It's a standalone little thing that just pops in like, here's this. You don't have to take it too seriously. Whereas The Last Jedi is supposed to be the continuation of a story I'm invested in, and it just doesn't do any of that. It doesn't even continue logically from The Force Awakens. So what is going on there? Holiday Special wins again I'll say by a narrow margin this time, because the Holiday Special is kind of ridiculous, but we can even call it a draw. I'm going to give Holiday Special by a narrow margin because it feels like it just doesn't fundamentally violate Star Wars. It may make a bit of a mockery of it in some ways. It doesn't fundamentally violate canon Star Wars. And the last category we're going to talk about is new characters. So the new characters you get in the Holiday Special, you get some random, Imperial bad guys. You get some... you get, like, this traitor on the planet, traitor, D-E-R, not betrayer, and he's fine, you get the sort of silly comic reliefy characters, or the bizarre ones in the holograms, and you get this barkeep at the Mos Eisley Cantina, and they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them, they're not flawed, there's nothing actually wrong with any of these characters, but, as I mentioned, this is the source material that introduces Boba Fett. Boba Fett is given to us for the first time in here. This introduces Boba Fett. That's pretty sensational right there. So right now you have a baseline of like meh, and then Boba Fett. Who are we introduced to in The Last Jedi? Rose. Aldo. Who else? What other new characters? What other important, meaningful, relevant new characters do we get in this movie? We don't. And the ones we do get are horrible. So, Holiday Special wins on that again. So that's my 6 categories, and right now Holiday Special has taken 4 out of 6 of them. So I think that can lead me to the obvious conclusion that the Star Wars Holiday Special is a better movie than The Last Jedi. Period. End of story. We can all agree on that, right? There's no dissent here. We all are 100% on the same page, right? Obviously. So let me know. Or let me know how much you agree, because this is clearly the only correct opinion. Anyway, till next time, I'm Jesse Milestone.